Carrie Morgan was Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. She described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice.
Cassie for 17 years, but things went sour after she alleged that Diddy beat her with a wooden coat hanger and she signed an NDA.
Did one moment in court make Diddy completely lose his cool? You won't believe what triggered his reaction when Cassie's best friend, Carrie Morgan, took the stand.
Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan, she described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice. The first time in a home Combs was renting in the Hollywood Hills. Morgan testified that, quote, "I saw him push her. I'm pretty sure he hit her." The second time allegedly happened in Jamaica. Morgan says they were in the bar area of a home when, quote, "I heard her screaming." She recalled guttural, terrifying screams. Combs faces the possibility of life in prison if convicted. He's pleaded not guilty and has denied all wrongdoing.
The courtroom buzzed with quiet chatter and the soft rustle of papers as everyone settled in for what many assumed to be another routine day in the trial. The air was intense, at least not yet, but there was a heaviness, a sense that something was brewing just beneath the surface. Diddy sat at the defense table, composed and confident. He leaned back slightly in his chair, flanked by his legal team, who flipped through notes with the calm assurance of professionals who believed they had the day under control. Behind them, the media whispered among themselves, cameras ready for the slightest spark of drama. Then, everything changed to the surprise of nearly everyone in the room. Carrie Morgan walked in. While her name had surfaced a few times in the lead-up to the trial, few anticipated that Cassie's best friend would take the stand, let alone play such a critical role. Carrie looked calm, but resolute as she approached the witness stand. The prosecution welcomed her with a sense of purpose, while Diddy's attorneys exchanged glances, their confidence visibly shaken. Diddy's eyes locked on her, his once relaxed posture slowly growing rigid. His demeanor shifted, his jaw clenched, his hands clasped tightly together, and his gaze narrowed as Carrie was sworn in. The room grew still. The energy shifted. It wasn't just another witness testifying. It was something more. Those watching Diddy closely began to notice the change. Known for his composure, especially under pressure, Diddy was beginning to crack. That Carrie's voice was steady, her words carefully chosen. But the impact was immediate. Her testimony began to peel back layers of the case that hadn't yet been exposed. Personal, intimate details began to spill out, details that hit hard. The courtroom, once filled with background noise, went dead silent. Then it happened. Carrie said something that struck a nerve, something only she, as Cassie's closest confidant, could reveal. Suddenly, Diddy slammed his hand on the table, breaking the silence with a sharp, loud thud. His voice cut through the courtroom as he interrupted her. Furious and visibly shaken, .1 journalist described a moment. It was as if he couldn't hold it in a second longer. Security immediately stiffened, ready to intervene, while the judge called for order. Diddy muttered loudly to his legal team, pointing at Carrie, shaking his head, his previously composed image unraveling in front of everyone. Witnesses later called the moment electric. 1 second you could hear a pin drop, said an observer, and the next, it felt like the whole room was about to explode. Even Diddy's own lawyers appeared stunned, scrambling to calm him down. Outside the courtroom, cameras captured a flurry of movement during the unexpected recess. Reporters scrambled to piece together what had just happened inside. But one question echoed louder than the rest. What did Carrie Morgan say that shook Diddy to his core? Whatever it was, it wasn't just powerful, it was personal. And it was enough to rattle one of the music industry's most famously composed figures. To understand the way her words, we need to look closer at who Carrie Morgan is, and why her voice in this case holds so much power.
Carrie Morgan was on the stand. That was Cassie Ventura's former best friend. What did Carrie say happened after that incident?
Cassie Ventura left the Intercontinental Hotel, went back to her apartment, her home, and there was Carrie Morgan waiting. She said immediately she saw the black eye that Ventura had testified Combs gave her after the freak-off got violent, and the whole reason why then the subsequent assault in the hallway happened. And then Carrie Morgan said about a half hour later, Sean Combs starts banging on the door with a hammer. It was not let in, but she said she heard him yelling finally called some of Combs' staff members to try to get him to leave. Police were called, but Cassie Ventura said, and Carey Morgan backed this up, that nothing ever came of it because Cassie Ventura refused to say anything about Sean Combs and what happened to her.
Aaron, I have to ask you, because Combs was sitting just feet away from Don Richard and Carey Morgan in court today, how did he react to seeing them and hearing all of this?
He's been an attentive listener. In some cases, he would shake his head or nod along or consult with his lawyers, scribbling a lot of notes. This was an important part of the testimony because it made a turn, Eva. The jury had heard from Cassie Ventura directly about, in rather explicit terms, a lot of the sex acts. But the prosecution's whole case is that she was coerced into that sex because of the violence, the kind of violence that both Don Richard and Carey Morgan said they witnessed. Now, the defense says there are other reasons for the violence. Jealousy, drugs, didn't have anything to do with coercing her into sex. But the prosecutors want the jury to hear these accounts to say that Cassie Ventura was not only telling the truth about being beat up, but that she had reason to then go along with Sean Combs' sexual demands.
Carey Morgan may not be a household name, but in this courtroom drama, she's become one of the most pivotal figures. As Cassie's best friend, Carey didn't just show up to offer emotional support. She stepped into the spotlight as a key witness whose words could potentially shift the entire trajectory of the case. The big question is, what does Carey Morgan know that others don't? What made her testimony so powerful that it visibly shook Diddy, a man known for keeping his cool under pressure? These aren't just questions born out of public curiosity. They go to heart why this trial has taken such a dramatic and unexpected turn. Let's rewind. Carey and Cassie go way back, long before courtroom cameras, headlines, or legal teams. Their bond is rooted in years of trust, shared experiences, and unbreakable loyalty. Those close to both women describe Carey as fiercely protective of Cassie, someone who's been by her side through it all. That matters because Carey isn't speaking from a distance. She was there. She saw what others didn't. And that makes her testimony more than just impactful. It makes it personal. But what sets Carey apart isn't just her long-standing friendship. It's her reputation. She's known to be level-headed, measured, and thoughtful, not someone who seeks attention or drama. According to sources close to the case, Carey's decision to testify wasn't made lightly. She understood the weight of her words and the risks of going up against a figure as powerful as Diddy. But she did it anyway. Why? Because, according to reports, she's not relying on secondhand information. Carey's testimony is based on what she directly witnessed or was told by Cassie over the years. Specific incidents of abuse, control, and manipulation. One media outlet called her the missing piece of the puzzle, someone whose words could fill in the blanks and connect the dots in a way no one else could. Leading up to her appearance on the stand, no one fully knew what she would say. But the moment she began to speak, the atmosphere in the courtroom changed. She didn't just offer vague accusations. She laid out patterns of behavior, detailed stories, and insider knowledge of Cassie's relationship with Diddy that hadn't been exposed before. And it hit hard. Her calm, unwavering delivery reportedly sent shockwaves through the courtroom. But the most unforgettable moment came when she revealed a specific incident. A deeply personal story that had never been made public. That was the moment Diddy lost it, slamming his hand on the table, interrupting her mid-testimony, and stunning the entire room. Witnesses described the moment as explosive. The courtroom, once hanging on every word, suddenly erupted into chaos. Even Diddy's legal team looked stunned, scrambling to rein him in as the judge called for order. So now, the spotlight is fully on Carey Morgan. Not because she wanted it, but because her voice carries undeniable weight. She stood up to one of the most powerful men in music, not for fame, not for attention, but to seek justice for her best friend. And the world is watching. Her testimony isn't over, but what we've seen so far suggests that the most explosive revelations are just beginning. Let's break down exactly what Carey revealed on the stand, and why it has left even the most composed man in the room visibly shaken.
You already mentioned the second witness today, Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. What did Carrie have to say?
So let me tell you, Carrie Morgan is crucial, and she came crucial because she comes off as credible. Because one of the first statements that she made is that she came here because she was compelled to testify. She no longer speaks to Cassie Ventura. They stopped talking in 2018 after this incident having to deal with where she was assaulted by Sean Combs, where Sean Combs grabbed her by the neck and also threw a wooden hanger at her, but also that it led to Cassie giving her $30,000 so she wouldn't say anything about that specific incident, and that was the end of their relationship. She also corroborated 2 of the assaults that took place, having to deal with Cassie in terms of her being drugged and as well as her being punched. So she corroborated a lot of the testimony, but she came off as a neutral witness, and the defense wasn't able to break her as they wanted to, but was able to say that, look, it was still a loving relationship.
Carrie Morgan's testimony wasn't just another day in court. It was a moment that shattered the foundation of Diddy's defense and flipped the entire trial on its head. From the instant she took the stand, the energy in the room shifted. There was a hush, a subtle tightening of the atmosphere. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be just another witness statement. Her presence had been building buzz for days, and now, seated under oath, she was about to deliver what many anticipated, and what Diddy most likely feared. What Carrie said wasn't just shocking, it was devastating. She started with quiet composure, outlining years of disturbing behavior she claimed to have witnessed firsthand. The courtroom listened as she painted a picture of a relationship that went far beyond toxic. It was, according to her, dangerous. Her testimony described patterns of control, emotional manipulation, and episodes of violence that allegedly unfolded behind closed doors. But then, things turned darker. Carrie described seeing bruises on Cassie, not once but multiple times, and recalled specific outbursts from Diddy where his temper reportedly turned violent. Each detail she offered landed heavier than the last, silencing the room into a tense stillness. It wasn't just about physical violence. Carrie spoke about a different kind of abuse, psychological control. She alleged that Diddy isolated Cassie from her closest friends and family, closely monitored her communications, and created an environment where fear, not love, dictated the terms of their relationship. According to her, it wasn't just a dysfunctional dynamic. It was a calculated campaign to control. One particular moment sent a ripple of disbelief through the courtroom. Carrie described a night where Cassie, terrified, called her in desperation. She claimed Diddy's anger had reached a tipping point. Carrie said she rushed to Cassie's side and had to physically step and protect her, a move she admitted could have escalated things further. The courtroom fell completely silent. Audible gasps followed. At one point, the judge had to intervene, calling the room to order. Diddy's legal team looked visibly shaken. But it was Diddy's reaction that marked the turning point. As Carrie continued and directly implicated him in an incident of violence, allegedly stating he couldn't be stopped, something in him visibly snapped. Witnesses say he muttered something under his breath before slamming his palm onto the table, the sharp crack of it echoing through the room. His usually composed demeanor was gone, replaced with barely controlled fury. The judge was forced to pause the proceedings as court officers tensed and observers tried to process what had just happened. It was no longer about what Carrie said. It was about what Diddy did in response. His outburst became the story within the story. Carrie, meanwhile, remained composed. Her words continued to hang in the air even after the courtroom had been called back to order. And though she didn't disclose every detail, what she did reveal was enough to change everything. Now, one question looms large. How will Diddy's legal team respond to the firestorm Carrie ignited? Will they attempt to refute her with evidence, paint her as unreliable, or shift the focus elsewhere? One thing is clear. Carrie Morgan's testimony didn't just rattle the courtroom. It cracked open a case that was already teetering on the edge. And what happens next could determine the course of the entire trial.
And I will say, I think she seemed to say things very matter of fact. There were definitely moments where there was a little bit of what I would call sass, which I didn't think was a bad thing. I think she represented herself very well, and I felt as I read what was being said, she seems like a very credible witness. I think this is going to be one that may stick out in the jury's mind because she was subpoenaed to be here. She is speaking in defense of Cassie, but at the same time, she was also very hurt by Cassie.
Yeah.
And the way that it all came out was very honest. So it's definitely an interesting one to go through.
Yeah, I mean, she's giving a perspective that it feels more like, I don't give a crap about any of these people, so I'm going to give it to you straight. I've moved on from all this, but let's go do it. And not really throwing Cassie under the bus anyway, but
no,
clearly doing it more honestly. So yeah, so she made it clear she was only there because of the subpoena, and she confirmed that she and Cassie, who met on a modeling shoot as teenagers, no longer speak because Ventura's boyfriend ate her. Now, was this Agnifilo? The Costco lawyer did end up doing this or not?
Yes, Mark Agnifilo, or as we lovingly call him, the Costco lawyer.
Because it's just funny, there's this buildup of he's finally going to do something during this trial. It was our first chance to see Costco lawyer step up to the stand, Kim, right? So
we'll get
as
there.
we go through, let's see how he does, yeah?
Yeah. It was fascinating.
Diddy's legal team wasted no time going on the offensive after Carey Morgan's explosive testimony. As soon as court resumed, they launched into a fierce counterattack, clearly determined to wrest control of the narrative and neutralize the damage. Their strategy was unmistakable. Discredit Carey's character, cast doubt on her motives, and dismantle the emotional way of her claims. Piece by piece, from the opening moment to cross-examination, it was clear they weren't treating Carey as a neutral observer. Instead, they portrayed her as too emotionally invested. Someone whose close friendship with Cassie might cloud her judgment. Point one of Diddy's attorneys began by asking, asterisk, would you say you've always taken Cassie's side, regardless of situation? Asterisk, a pointed question that suggested Carey's loyalty might be overriding objectivity. It was a strategic move, aiming to paint her not as a reliable witness, but as someone whose deep personal ties might be distorting her version of events. They pushed harder, questioning her memory of the incident she described. The defense zeroed in on the timeline of her testimony, probing for gaps or inconsistencies. Asterisk, isn't it true that you weren't physically present for many of these events? Asterisk, one lawyer pressed. Try to frame her account as hearsay or exaggerated secondhand information. But Carey didn't waver. Calm and measured, she answered each question directly, refusing to be rattled, even as the tone of the questioning grew more aggressive. When their attempt to poke holes in her timeline didn't break her stride, the defense shifted to a new angle, motive. They began suggesting that Carey had something to gain by testifying, perhaps personal grievances against Diddy that had nothing to do with justice. Would you describe your relationship with Mr. Combs as positive before all of this? Asterisk, one attorney asked, setting up a narrative that Carey might be motivated more by resentment than truth. The implication was subtle but deliberate. Maybe this wasn't just about protecting her friend. Maybe Carey had an axe to grind as the cross-examination intensified. The judge had to intervene multiple times to maintain order. At one point, when a defense attorney became especially forceful, the judge issued a stern warning. Asterisk, this court will not tolerate disrespect toward any witness. Asterisk still, the defense stayed on message. If Carey's testimony had struck a nerve, they were determined to make the jury second-guess every word of it. But the response to their approach was split. Some courtroom observers noted that the defense's line of questioning may have successfully planted seeds of doubt, particularly by highlighting moments when Carey wasn't physically present. Others, however, believed the opposite, that the more Diddy's legal team tried to rattle her, the more credible she appeared. One insider remarked, asterisk, she didn't flinch. If anything, they made her seem stronger. Asterisk now, the question hanging in the air is this: will the defense's aggressive tactics be enough to sway the jury? Or did Carey's composure, along with the emotional weight of her testimony, strike too deep of a chord? That answer might lie in the next critical piece of the case, the actual evidence Carey brought to court. If what she provided supports her claims, it could shift the trial's momentum entirely and possibly deliver a devastating blow to Diddy's defense.
You two were best friends for 18 years, but now you haven't spoken with her since 2018. That's true. At the danger of being capital obvious, that's a long time. She's moved on. Objection. Why haven't you spoken with her? She did not support me after Sean assaulted me. I try that line at assault. I don't know what that means. Oh, I think it means I set the line at assault. I don't cross the line of assault or whatever. You reached a settlement with Miss Ventura? The money came from Mr. Combs. So This was after, I believe, she was assaulted by Diddy, that that in order to hush her up, Diddy gave her some money, or they settled it, however it is. That's a pattern that seems to be happening with him throughout the decades. So Agnifilo shows Carrie Morgan photos, then asks, do you know if Louise Hayes is a self-help author about self-affirmation? Yes. Why did you send him this with words of encouragement? I don't remember sending it. Okay. I want to show you a few more photos, but first, let's talk about the incident where he put his hands on your neck. Were you and Cassie using any drugs at the time? No. What did he say? He said, who is she cheating with? You went to an urgent care and not the hospital, right? Like she's saying just right as the answer. But you told the prosecutors it was bloody and you went to the hospital. I don't remember that. Look at this. And so this is material not shown to the jury. I see that I said that. Now in this, I think it's like now in cross-examination. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. I see that I said that. Do you remember Mr. Agnifilo asking you about an incident in LA? Objection, overruled. And he hit her like in Jamaica, arguing. Okay. That's what it is. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me go back. So they were doing right here. Agnifilo is Diddy's attorney. That's why I wasn't understanding. So they did the cross. All right. So now this is the prosecutors again asking her questions. They get to come back up. So that's who's asking. That was like, why is Agnifilo asking a question about himself?
Carrie Morgan didn't just walk into the courtroom with a powerful story. She came prepared with hard evidence that shook the very foundation of the case. Her testimony was already compelling. But what truly stunned everyone was the physical proof she brought to back it up. This wasn't speculation or emotional appeal. This was documentation. And it changed everything to S.O. What exactly did she present? According to insiders, Carrie turned over a trove of materials, text messages, photographs, and audio recordings that directly supported her claims and Cassie's allegations. One of the most shocking revelations came in the form of text messages exchanged between Carrie and Cassie during the time the alleged abuse occurred. These weren't just generic messages. They reportedly included Cassie reaching out in real time, describing specific moments of fear, control, and violence. In court, portions of these texts were read aloud. Observers described the courtroom atmosphere as tense, with some noting that even the judge looked visibly disturbed by the content. But it didn't stop there. Carrie also handed over photographs that she claimed Cassie sent her, images that reportedly showed visible bruises and injuries. These photos, entered into evidence, were described by journalists as both graphic and heartbreaking. As the prosecution displayed them, the courtroom fell into a chilling silence. Each image was paired with a message in which Cassie allegedly confided her fear of retaliation and her hopelessness in trying to leave the relationship. According to Carrie, these photos were a way for Cassie to document what was happening, a silent cry for help. And then came what many consider the most damning piece of evidence, the audio recordings. Carrie provided recordings of heated arguments between Diddy and Cassie. In one clip played in court, Diddy could allegedly be heard yelling, the tone aggressive, the words pointed, with some recordings reportedly containing threats. Though the defense tried to argue that the recordings were taken out of context and didn't tell the full story, the courtroom's reaction spoke volumes. The impact was immediate. Some jurors were visibly shaken, and several reporters described the gallery as frozen in stunned silence. The defense maintained that without full context, these recordings couldn't be taken at face value. But to many inside that room, the tone and emotional intensity in Diddy's voice were impossible to ignore. With this mountain of evidence now in the mix, the dynamic of the case has shifted dramatically. Carrie's testimony no longer stands alone. It's reinforced by tangible proof that seems to validate every disturbing claim. It's no longer just Cassie's word against Diddy's. Now, the courtroom is grappling with visual, written, and auditory evidence that paints a chilling picture of what may have gone on behind closed doors. Where does this leave things? Carrie Morgan's role in this trial has gone from supporting witness to game changer. Her testimony, paired with the evidence, has pushed the case into uncharted territory. The balance of power has shifted, and it's clear that this trial isn't just about Diddy and Cassie anymore. It's about accountability, courage, and the cost of speaking out against someone powerful. But even with all that's been revealed, this case is far from over. If anything, Carrie's bombshells may have only scratched the surface. What's coming next could be even more explosive. Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. This story is still unfolding, and the next chapter might just be the most shocking yet.